Girls, come on. Leave the saving of the world to the men? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Did somebody say
Slay.
On its way out, or is it here to stay?
I prefer to reorganize the acronym to DIE, which is die, because die is where meritocracy and excellence go to die. It's a cancer of the human spirit, right? Diversity, inclusion, equity basically says we're not going to grant professorships based on the size of your CV, but based on your behavior in the bedroom or the skin you that you have. Is it on its way out? Regrettably, no. The University of Waterloo, which is kind of like the MIT of Canada, calls for chaired professorships. It says something like, for this position, only trans people can apply. So imagine that you're in the 21st century at a major Canadian university. The highest professorship in computer science is dependent on a thing called two-spirit or non-binary. If Alan Turing were alive today and he applied for that professorship, he would be denied that professorship. He was gay, but that wouldn't be good enough. He's not two-spirit, he's not non-binary, he's not gender. Example.
And he's white.
And he's white.
Greatest sin of all.
That is grotesque.
It went on its side, it then flipped upside down, and somehow everyone survived. So Wiz, how does this happen?
Hello.
Yes, I don't know when this was stopped. Former MMBC star Matthew Hudson sparked fury by calling for more plane crashes than plays the victim. He deleted the tweet after massive backlash on social media, extremely concerning. When you take a look at what is going on, Libras are crazy. Chuck Schumer had a segment today. He went further, double down, blamed the White House and Elon Musk for what is going on. Oh, this was fire. Oh, Trump took a decision. We saw what happened in Canada recently. And the situation was at a level that I was even confused. I think I reported on that. I'm going to show you this video where Megyn Kelly sat down with this man. He actually explained what happened. But before I do that, first take a look at this.
Somehow everyone survived. So Wiz, how does this happen?
Well, Megan, thanks for having me back again. Sadly, under these circumstances, or actually since everybody got out, I guess we're okay. Megan, the first thing, when I saw the in-cockpit video this morning, I heard you reading your email in the last block there. Then I guess I can talk like this. That jet was coming down like a turd off a tall moose. Landing in F-18 aboard an aircraft carrier, our average rate of descent is about 800 feet per minute. And I think the last flight tracker data that I saw for this RJ was about 1,100 feet per minute. So that RJ came down a lot faster and harder than I would have landed aboard the boat. And I think, you know, one of the officials yesterday or last night said, hey, crosswind wasn't an issue. Whenever anything like this happens, Megan, I grab my Aviation app and I immediately look at the weather, see what the weather is. And landing on runway 23, the winds were out at 270, so about 40 degrees off the nose or down the runway in really gusty conditions. So it looks like this airplane didn't really have too much of a flare, which is when you get close into the runway, we pull the nose back, pull back on the throttles and kind of do that nice, what we as Navy pilots would say, Air Force landing. But this landing was hard, and it looks like it sheared off the right main landing gear, took the wing with it, and then the only wing that was left, the left wing, still producing lift, they kind of corkscrew and roll down the runway. But my God, you know, we jokingly in aviation say any landing we can walk away from is a good landing. That was a pretty bad landing, and thank God a lot of people walked away.
Just to clarify what you're saying, so they say weather's not an issue, but you're saying you have questions about that based on the data that you saw.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, whether if they're talking about clouds or low ceilings or anything like that, just because the sun is out doesn't mean the weather is great. Very, very gusty conditions. When I looked at my phone after the mishap, it was 25 gusts, 45 knots, which is absolutely significant. That's some sporty wind conditions. If it's right down the runway, right on the nose, that's fine. Still a little sporty. But if it's 40 degrees off, you're kind of crabbing into the wind and having to take that crab out at the last second. Very, very sporty conditions. So
Sporty. What a word.
Or varsity or JV, however you want to word it. It was definitely not pleasant conditions. So whether if you're
dangerous,
about ceilings,
obviously. So Greg,
clearly.
do you agree with that? And if so, I always like to tell myself, as somebody who used to fly out of O'Hare all the time in very snowy, bad conditions, they wouldn't let the plane take off if this weren't safe to fly in. So what should they not have been flying planes in this kind of wind?
No, these winds, as Wiz will tell you, are winds that pilots are trained to handle. There are certain limitations, not only with the aircraft, but the airline sets a policy about wind conditions as well. But when you look at this landing in the video, that aircraft was coming down at a high rate of descent. You typically will go into a flare and arrest that descent so that when you touch down, your rate of descent is maybe 100 to 200 feet a minute rather than 1,100. The nominal is about 500 to 700 feet per minute. So
this is happening against the backdrop of massive cuts across the federal government, including at the FAA. Just going to put some up on the screen. Hundreds of FAA employees have been laid off as part of Elon Musk going through all the federal agencies. And then beyond the FAA, we have 10% of the CDC workforce, 3,400 at the U.S. Forest Service, 2,200 at the Interior Department, 2,000 at the Department of Energy, 1,000 at the VA.
Yeah, listen, and so far, at least if you kind of look at how Americans, Trump voters in particular, are reacting, so far this is something that they haven't really been affected by. You do hear from some GOP senators who are in some of these states where they're public parks, for instance, raising some alarms. But so far, these cuts, because they are directed.
Yes, I believe you have gotten some clarifications on what actually happened, but Libras are not talking like this. They have different talking points, pertaining to what actually happened. When you take a look at this, I'm going to show you the video. Chuck Schumer doubled down on blaming the Trump White House for plane crash in Toronto while playing dumb about it. Just weeks after the deadliest plane crash in a long time, President Trump has fired hundreds of FFA workers, including air safety personnel, firing people whose very job is to keep us travel safe is nothing short of reckless. That is according to Chuck Schumer. Transportation Secretary said has been clear that zero critical safety personnel and air traffic controllers have been fired, but they won't listen. They will continue to pardon this, spreading this kind of info. It is insane. The White House accused us of linking the crash of the Minneapolis flight directly with FFA cut in staffing. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is what he actually said. Going further. Let me not talk much. Let me just play the video so you can see what he said.
The FAA. The more Donald Trump and Doge indiscriminately hack away at public agencies, the greater harm to Americans' well-being and even their safety. The FAA is a good example. Just weeks after the deadliest plane crash in a long time, and just as we see more incidents around the country, President Trump has fired hundreds of FAA workers, including air safety personnel. Firing people whose very job it is to keep air travel safe is nothing short of reckless. Now, the White House accused us of linking the crash of the Minneapolis flight directly with FAA cuts in staffing. Nothing could be further from the truth. I simply said that when there are fewer FAA personnel, the skies are less safe. Does Donald Trump deny that there are fewer FAA staffers? Does Donald Trump deny that when he fires FAA workers, including workers who focus on safety, it makes travel less safe? Of course, Donald Trump is obfuscating once again. He doesn't want the truth to come out. But he should correct course immediately.
So what happened in Toronto? is now being linked to Trump. I want to know the relation. Like, seriously, how is it even possible? How can you even say this? You should be ashamed to say this. Canada is now in the US, right? I don't get it. They tried the first time, I could not react. Now we are seeing this, we are still struggling to pardon these lies. It is crazy. When I see this happening over and over, Democrat can learn. By now they should realize that people know the truth, know what is going on. So no matter how you try to lie, you need to be careful. This is why they didn't win the elections and they still haven't gotten in. They continue to pardon these lies. People are connected to the internet, they see the truth, they see what is going on. So when you stand in front of the Senate like this, giving crazy speech with less people even watching, you think you are doing something great with this kind of lies. It is not good. You see clips after this is just for the algorithm. It helps the channel in a way I can't explain here.
A bully and a thug who's the president of the United States, U.S., it's everywhere.
There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits. A chance to see what happens when you take a business approach to the government.
Also, I got to say, don't you agree? I totally agree.
Essential.
Early on, immediately.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10.
To her.
No, the EU does not treat the U.S. fairly on trade and that he has some big complaints. Is that true?
Right? And it doesn't mean that we should sit and pretend that it's suddenly okay, that this new presidency is just going to keep on keeping on. That is not the case. And
awful things have happened so and sparks move things. And it doesn't matter how much water you have.
Future president and his gag
are quality and policy.
The city of the Pacific Palisades is burning. And, I flew here last night. I was on a plane.
You getting water to areas that need...
He's been trained his whole life to do.
What do we do?
All right, right now you're looking straight. Remember it.
As a country about James.
Yeah, and then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know.
Jim Jordan.
Josh Green, the governor.
Watch news or talk.
Now, look, I have a lot of...
The Democratic Party has about everything.
The next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today,
thank you. Hey, now speaking of church, can I...
In common, they're all terrified of Ronan Farrow.
Is probably one of the most unintelligent billionaires.
On Team Chiefs, literally right next to us was Taylor Swift.
There's a movement right now for the...
Congresswoman.